The man on the cliff beneath a sky thick with the heavy clouds of late winter, a lone figure stood silently on the edge of a cliff, his eyes fixed on the rolling waves below. His name was Elias. Once a smuggler, now an exile. The village he had grown up in had cast him out years ago, and he hadn't dared return. The man's face, weathered by time and sorrow, bore the deep lines of regret. In his calloused hand, he clutched a silver chain, the only remnant of a mother he never got to say goodbye to. It glinted faintly, a fragile link to a past filled with love, now overshadowed by a lifetime of mistakes. As the wind howled and the sea crashed against the rocks, Elias stood unmoving, as if the waves could somehow wash away his sins. But he knew better. Some stains go deeper than the skin, they live in the soul. Shadows of the past. Elias had not always been a man consumed by remorse. In his youth, he was full of dreams, simple ones, like opening a small shop, or marrying the baker's daughter who smiled at him every morning. But temptation crept in slowly. The promise of easy money, the thrill of rebellion, the taste of power, it all seemed harmless at first. One lie led to another, then to betrayal. He sold out his closest friend for a bag of silver. He turned his back on his brother to avoid suspicion. Each choice carved away a piece of his soul. And eventually, the boy who once believed in love and fairness vanished, replaced by a man hardened by greed and fear. The villagers stopped looking him in the eye. Children whispered that he had no shadow. Elias felt like a ghost, haunting a world that had already buried him. The stranger appears one morning, as the sky began to bleed light over the waves. Elias wandered the shoreline, his boots sinking into the cold, wet sand. He wasn't searching for anything. Or perhaps he was, he just didn't know it. That's when he saw the fire. A small flame danced against the wind, and beside it sat a man. His clothes were plain, his hair touched with gray, and his eyes. Elias would never forget those eyes. Deep. Calm. Kind. The man looked up and smiled. "You look like a man carrying a burden too heavy for the sea to take," he said. Elias hesitated. His first instinct was to walk away. But something rooted him there. He sat. For the first time in years, he listened. A conversation about faith. They spoke long into the morning. Or rather, the man spoke and Elias listened. He didn't speak of rules or punishment. He spoke of mercy. Of healing. Of rebirth. "You see," the man said, tossing a twig into the fire, "there is no sin too heavy, only hearts too close to release it." Elias felt the weight of those words settle into his bones. No one had ever spoken to him like that, not without judgment, not without fear. The fire crackled between them, warm against the chill air, as if the very earth had paused to listen. Elias found himself speaking. Not much. Just a few words. A name. A regret. But it was enough to start the crumbling of the wall he had built inside himself. The quiet miracle. The next morning, Elias returned to the same spot, unsure if the stranger would be there. He was. Standing near the surf, his hands lifted slightly as if in prayer. A fisherman nearby struggled with empty nets. The stranger whispered something, his voice barely rising above the wind. Suddenly, the nets sagged with movement. Dozens of fish filled them in an instant. Elias stood frozen. Was it a trick? A coincidence? But deep inside, he knew. This was not chance. It was grace. It was the kind of miracle he had long stopped believing in. And for the first time in years, something inside Elias stirred hope. The decision to change that night, Elias couldn't sleep. He stared at the silver chain, running his fingers over its links. He remembered his mother's voice, soft, forgiving, full of faith. He closed his eyes and whispered a prayer, awkward and trembling. The next day, he packed up what little he had. He sold the jewels he had hidden, gave the money to the widow he had wronged, to the family he had betrayed. He returned to the beach. "I don't know who you are," Elias said, "but you brought me back to life." The revelation. The man looked at him, not with surprise, but with a knowing sadness. "You don't recognize me, Elias? I was there when you lied to your brother. I was there when you wept at your mother's grave. I've been there all along." Elias's breath caught. The fire crackled behind him. The man stepped forward. "I am Jesus." The name fell like thunder in Elias's soul. He dropped to his knees, tears carving clean paths down his weathered face. He reached for the stranger's hand and wept like a child. Not out of fear, but out of awe. A new breath. Everything changed after that day. Elias became a man reborn. He built shelters for the homeless. He shared stories with orphan children. He became a comfort for those who had lost hope. The village, once fearful of him, began to whisper a different tale. Some said he had gone mad. Others believed he had met an angel. Elias would simply smile and say, "I met forgiveness." He didn't need them to believe. He had already been redeemed. The final meeting. Years passed. Elias grew old. His hands trembled, his eyes faded. But his heart beat stronger than ever. One gentle spring evening, he returned to the beach. The wind was soft, the waves slow and steady. He sat on the same rock he had once cried on. And there he was. The same stranger. Untouched by time. Elias smiled. "I'm ready, Lord." The man knelt beside him, and Elias closed his eyes, leaning into the peace that had always waited for him. A bright ending. The next morning, a fisherman found Elias sitting against the cliff, a soft smile on his face. Around him, footprints in the sand that led to nowhere. And on the cliff above, a flowering peach tree bloomed, though no one had ever planted one there. The villagers said the wind carried a voice that day, gentle and true. Forgiveness is the truest form of freedom.